So you're looking to get into ranked, or you've been in ranked and you've maybe not enjoyed it, or whatever. There's all sorts of things that can put people off at playing ranked. My name's Blackwatch, by the way. So this particular guide is aimed more at newer players, or players who haven't really given ranked a proper go yet, or who just play Siege in a casual setting. It may cover some stuff that you've already been told about, such as team compositions, but I won't go on about it for too long. I will be talking about some options that you can bring into ranked for specific operator roles. I'll be covering which operators from the sort of free vanilla set of operators that you can get with renown, or with smaller amounts of renown, that you would want to use in those roles. And then I'll be giving alternative premium options from the DLC operators that you can pick from, stuff like that. And then I'll just be going over some tips on how to sort of get in and enjoy yourself more, and ways to hopefully have a better time, and to maybe put less stress on yourself about getting a rank that is hard to achieve, and ultimately just playing ranked and forgetting about the fact that your rank is going to be attached to your account. You never know, you might find something useful here. So in ranked, there's one mode, and that's bomb. It's a change that only came in a few seasons ago, and it was a controversial one for like 5 minutes, and then everyone started to realise that actually once you've gotten past the initial confusion, bomb is definitely the most competitive and most interesting game mode in the game. A lot of people don't like bomb. I didn't like bomb, but I really like bomb now, because I've been able to play it and I understand how the meta works in bomb. So get yourself in on bomb on quick match if you've not tried it, or try some unranked, practice, get used to the game mode. That's the first thing you should try and do. Get used to the idea of playing bomb, and you will eventually enjoy it, I promise. It takes 4 rounds to win. So it's a 3-3 split, and yeah, basically you'll do 3 rounds of whatever you started on. So blue team will always be attacking, orange team will always be defending, and then after the 3rd round you then swap and start to do the opposing team's role for however many rounds that takes. If it's 3-0 and you swap and the enemy team wins the next round, then they bring it to 4-0. The game's over, unfortunately. If the score goes to 3-3, then that activates a 3-round maximum overtime, where the maximum score you can achieve in a ranked game without having draws in the rounds is 5-4. So 5-4 is a score you will encounter often, but they tend to be the more fun games, the ones that really last out. You play 10 placement games to get your rank initially. This is to let the system have an idea of how you actually perform against different kinds of opponents, and it'll set you a rank that sort of reflects your performance and your team's performance whilst you were doing those placements. So this is the first thing you need to get over, and you'll be placed in one of many ranks, going from copper at the lowest, then bronze, then silver, then gold, then platinum, then diamond, and then the newest rank that was added in recently, and that's the top rank of champion. Now this is for the top 500, I believe, players on that specific region, on that specific platform. So it's 500 players from those different categories will have the champion rank, and rather than being, whatever subsection of the rank it is, it's just the number you are within those 500, so 434th or whatever. And so that's how the rank works, and your reward for getting that rank is that the highest rank you've achieved, as long as you've not fallen out of that rank for ages, will end up being the sort of rarity of charm that you then achieve for the end of season. So going into the next season, you'll be rewarded a charm that reflects your rank in the previous season. They look progressively nicer through the ranks because the sort of main colour changes depending on what the rank was. Platinum's got a blue, Diamond's got purple, Champion's got a pink, it's got some animation on it, and then the semi-precious metals don't really have anything other than their colour. But they're all nice in their own special ways, and it's a nice way to have something to hold on to going forward, and it shows how much of an OG gangster you were when you managed to pick up your Dustline Copper Charm or Bronze Charm like I did. The other thing that we have in ranked is pick and ban. So pick and ban, when you're doing that, is basically having each team pick one attacker and one defender that they don't want to have played in the entirety of the match. So this changes depending on who you're going to be going against, what map you're going to be going against, if you're attacking first or defending first. All these things can factor in, and ultimately some teams just ban certain operators because they feel less comfortable dealing with them. That's perfectly fine, but as you go higher in the ranks, you tend to find that it's less about comfort and more about control, and making sure that you can take advantage of a team not having something that they would otherwise be much better off with having. A good example, if you're savvied up on the sites, is banning Kaid when you're attacking on the Oregon basement. This one basically stops them from actively defending the hatch. It makes it a lot more difficult for them to do so, at least. And if you also have a mute ban there, then it's pretty much game over for that hatch. So that's one of the ones that I'd mention. The previous seasons, if you have played before, the rank from that previous season is now taken into consideration when you play your placement. So it's sort of put in there to give your ranking a bit of a preemptive weight, so that it has a general idea of where you should be anyway, and your placements don't have as much of an effect on your rank as they would have done previously. Obviously, if you completely bomb and you're already in low ranks with your previous rank, then you're kind of screwed. But otherwise, it's not going to be quite as harsh. It's designed to let people who are at the skill level that they're supposed to be get to that skill level again from a ranking point of view. So you're not going to have people who should be in plat sitting around silver because of some bad placement games, which is something that has unfortunately happened to me in the past. I can tell you the grind from silver 3 up to platinum 3 was not a particularly fun one, but I did manage to do it 2 seasons ago, so never say never. The more you play, the less your rank changes. So the reason this happens is that the game basically slowly but surely starts to realise where you should be, and so the gains that you get are less dramatic. So it's essentially you settling into the rank that you're in. Obviously becomes more difficult to gain and move up the ranks, but it also becomes more difficult to lose because the amount that you drop is not as harsh and the amount that you gain is not as harsh. So it's proportional in both directions. If the better team in the match wins against the weaker team, they'll gain less, whereas if the weaker team in the match wins against the better team, they'll gain more. But sometimes you'll have fairly evenly matched teams and you'll start to see quite consistent gains, but there's sometimes outliers. It really depends. When you're doing the pick and ban, you'll start to notice some trends. So there's very common bans at lower levels. These are more the comfort bans, so bans against operators that people maybe don't enjoy having to deal with. Good examples would be Cav and Clash. Cav because interrogation is scary and it makes it more difficult to traverse the map when she is around and maybe going to get someone. And Clash because she's got a big shield and it takes a bit of coordination to deal with, and you don't always find that in lower ranks. And then from the attacking point of view, Jackal because he makes roamers' life difficult. Roamers' lives, rather. Jesus. Blitz and Mont, the two shields, because people, again, just struggle to deal with shields. None of these characters are particularly difficult to counter in their own different ways, but it does take that bit of knowledge, and with some of them it takes a bit of team play and coordination, so I can understand why people would be less comfortable with them. Whereas at the higher levels, you tend to find you're more likely to have hard breachers and anti-electronics people, breach denial people. So your bandits, your thatchers, your thermites, they'll be looking to get banned because it makes the team's job more difficult on whatever side they're on. Same with Echo because he can deny a bomb plant, or a diffuser plant, which is very, very, very strong, especially late into the round. If he can do that, sometimes he can win without having to fire a single bullet, which is crazy. Capitao, because he's got so much utility, he can prevent people from running onto site when a plant is going down, because he can set fires in places, and he's also got the smoke pellets. Less powerful now, thanks to Wamai coming into the meta, but still perfectly reasonable pick, and does tend to get banned relatively often. Mira's another one. She just offers a lot of intel and has her own sort of level of denial through that intel. And then Maestro is the other one, because his evil eyes do a similar thing to Echo, but they obviously have a damaging role rather than just a stun role. It can be just as strong, it can be slightly weaker, it really depends on what you're looking for. So the one thing I would sort of caution you on before you do step into ranked and before you finally take the plunge into actually playing some ranked games, that is that you should really know your stuff first. So learn your callouts, learn your operators, interaction between operators' gadgets, and try and figure out the maps as well. The map rotation on ranked is very similar to the Pro League map rotation. It's a lot smaller than the quick match one, but it's smaller for good reason. It's taken out a lot of the fluff maps that aren't particularly competitive, especially not in Bomb. So it's removed them for the betterment of the game, ultimately. But all of these things, if you can learn your callouts, if you can learn the ops, what they look like, what they sound like, the names of their gadgets, stuff like that, if you can learn how they interact with each other, how the gadgets are actually going to play out in a round and what counters what, all these things will make going into ranked, especially with people who you might want to communicate with, a lot easier. There's plenty of videos out there that will explain these kind of things to you. I'm sure that in the future I'll end up doing some videos on these as well, but it won't take you too long to pick it up, and even just playing some casuals, playing some unranked, you'll pick it up eventually, so fear not. Ultimately, ranked isn't something to be feared, and the reason you shouldn't fear it is because your rank doesn't really matter. It's a measure of your worth at the time that you play, but everyone has to start somewhere. It's not a bad thing to be called a bronze or a silver or a gold. It really doesn't matter, because ultimately everyone has a level that they have to start at. You can't just walk into a game and guarantee that you're going to be amazing. So instead of worrying about it, just start and play and get yourself that charm and wear it because it's fun, and improve yourself. Build upon the skills that you have, and then eventually you'll start getting the ranks that maybe just now you feel like you should have but you're not getting. And then it's not going to be anywhere near as scary. One of the things that's going to help you is this little sort of starter pack that I've got. So this is a starter pack of operators that I believe will help you out when you're trying to build a composition in a team. So when you're attacking, generally speaking, you need to have a hard breacher, an anti-electronics person, a retake denial person, and a soft breacher. So that's only 4, and then you've got a 5th role free, which some people would fill with fragger. I don't particularly like the idea of fragger as a role when we're talking about sort of starting out. I think that encourages the wrong kind of behaviour in ranked. So in my opinion, you should focus on these 4 roles, and then fragging can come into its own later on whenever you're doing your own thing. So in terms of the free characters, obviously you need to get renowned for them, but they are free. They don't cost you any money. The hard breacher would be Thermite. He was the only hard breacher who had been released at Vanilla, and he's definitely a fantastic option. Then your anti-electronics Thatcher, again, standard. He's got a very easy to use gadget. He's got very good weapons for what they are. Just a very simple character. Does the job well. Does it in the most simple way possible. Retake denial, kind of limited in terms of the vanilla characters, but Mont is about as close as you can get, because if you have a single doorway, he can extend his shield and basically stand in and completely block the enemy operator from going through that doorway. So it's not really retake denial in the sort of traditional sense, but it still does the job on those slim occasions. And the soft breacher is Sledge. Again, very limited options from the free ones, but none of them are bad. Thermite is still played all the time, same with Thatcher, same with Mont to a lesser extent, and same with Sledge. And they're all perfectly good characters. I play them all plenty. They'll do the job for you perfectly well, just as well, if not better in some cases, than the premium characters. But the premium hard breacher, for me, has got to be Hibana. She brings so much versatility when it comes to doing hatches, and she can do a wall in a pinch as well. And she's got some really good weapons. The SMG Secondary's not quite, oh, excuse me, as good as it used to be. But the pistol's pretty good. And that primary Type 89, I think, can't remember what it's called, is a pretty good assault rifle, even though it's got 20 rounds. It's a small capacity, but it melts, so it's okay. It kind of justifies itself. So she's good. Anti-electronics is one of the newest operators, Callie, who's just added this season, Shifting Tides. I've only really said her because she is the only DLC anti-electronics person that has been added. Personally, if you're looking to buy someone who's not vanilla, don't when you're new, because Callie is really difficult. Her gun's not easy to use at all, and she takes a lot to make work. Whereas if you want to use someone, if you are fed up with Thatcher, by all means use someone else, but I would go with Twitch in this case. Twitch is obviously not a premium up, but she has a slightly more advanced gun than Thatcher, but it's a very, very good gun. Her gadget's a bit more difficult to use because the shock drone can be destroyed before it's offered anything useful to the team, but it's less high risk than Callie overall. Callie is a very high risk operator after her gadget stuff is done, so I would avoid her if this is your first time. Retake Denial, Gridlock, absolute classic example, basically puts down the attacking equivalent of barbed wire as a gadget. It deals a lot of damage to people who walk through it and makes a lot of noise if it's shot and destroyed, and it takes a lot to destroy it. She has quite simple guns, but good guns, perfectly serviceable. She's got a very good secondary shotgun for some utility. She can bring smoke grenades. Her gadget's easy to use. Perfect example of retake. The other option would be Nomad. Those are the only two retake denial operators currently in the game, really. There aren't any others that I can think of. But she's, well, actually Capito. But Capito is different in a sense. Capito fulfills a slightly different role. But Gridlock is very, very good. Much simpler than Nomad, better guns than Nomad, but Nomad does have a slightly stronger gadget, but it takes a bit more to use that. So go with Gridlock, very good. And your soft breacher for me, it was between Buck and Zofia, but just for newer players, I recommend Zofia. It's not as quick to use as Buck's shotgun, but Buck's weapons are much more difficult to get a handle of than Zofia's AK. That AK is a beast. It's very, very good, the M792 AK. It's a solid gun. It behaves a lot like Thatcher's gun, but it's a little bit stronger. Her gadget is very good. It's got 2 impact grenades and 2 concussion grenades. She's got a natural inbuilt resistance to Ella's stuns, and Ella is slowly but surely climbing through the meta, and I imagine they'll be buffing her SMG recoil at some point, so she'll come back into fruition again. And the gadget's easy to understand, and it adds a lot to the team when it's used. 4 launches of anything is a good thing. So Sophia's a good pick for a premium soft breacher. In terms of defenders, you will almost always need an anchor, a roamer, a breach denial person, an intel person, and a plant/push denial person. So your anchor is the guy who's sitting on site, and that's pretty obvious. Your roamer is roaming around the map. They're just looking for people coming in initially and trying to take them out as they sneak around. Breach denial is stopping breaches from happening, more specifically hard breaches, so breaching reinforced walls. Intel is looking to gather intelligence for the team, so setting up cameras, things like that. And your plant push denial is trying to stop the diffuser plant from going up, or trying to stop people from pushing into sites easily. So, for those, the free ones, you have Rook as the anchor. Doc and Rook are the classic anchor characters in Siege. Tachanka is as well, but Tachanka is almost worthless, so don't take him. And I've picked Rook out of these two because his armour is guaranteed worth every time you use it, whereas Doc doesn't necessarily get full value out of his gadget because it's an active gadget, not a passive one. Rook you can fire and forget. In terms of roaming, you got Jaeger. Jaeger is another fire and forget type character. He has one of the very best guns in the game, the 416 carbine. He has a gadget that is invaluable. It can destroy grenades, and it can destroy up to 6 of them at a time, as long as it's cleverly placed. And this is any type of grenade, flashbang, frag grenade, all that kind of stuff. It's very, very good. Definitely worth using. Then we've got Bandit as the breach denial. He is a bit more difficult than Mute, but he is better after his gadget's been used than Mute is, because his kit is stronger. But he does have a much higher skill ceiling because the gadget itself, when it's going to be used actively for tricking, is a lot more difficult to use. But really, for me, this is one of the few examples where I would say go with Bandit first, because developing a comfort for his weapons will then make the experience of playing him, even if you're not succeeding with Bandit tricking, more enjoyable in time, because you'll get the chance to get used to the MP7, which is a fierce gun, very, very nice. And with time, you'll learn more and more how to bandit trick properly, and it's a very good thing for the team to have, as a good bandit who can bandit trick. Capcan is your intel person, so he kind of gives the general idea of where people are if an EDD is triggered or if an EDD is destroyed. It's not quite as strong as Legion. Obviously, Legion has a marker to tell him exactly where his things are at all times, and he can see when they've been destroyed or triggered, and can figure out where someone is based on that. But there isn't really anyone else other than maybe Pulse, but Pulse's gadget has such a short range that I find it difficult to really treat it like an intel gadget as such. It's different, it's his own kind of thing, but you could include Pulse here as well. Capcan and Pulse, they're definitely suitable for the role, but I think Capcan is a bit easier to grasp initially, and is much easier to use overall. Then you got Smoke as your plant denial, your push denial. Again, he does very well and is still used to this day. He's got a great shotgun, he's got an SMG that used to be amazing and still is okay, and his gadget is very, very strong. It's Smoke, it lasts for 10 seconds, it deals damage to people. If they're using Finka, it deals even more damage to them. Very, very good, as long as it's used properly. But he is quite an advanced character, but he's the only plant denial that you get out of the free track of people. So get some practice in on him first. He's not that easy, but when you do get used to him, he's a beast. In terms of the premium ones, you've then got Warden as the anchor. There are other anchors, there's people like Mira and things like that, but Mira's a very advanced character. I wouldn't recommend picking Mira straight away, because if you don't know where to put her mirrors just now, it can be almost detrimental to the enemy or to your team to put them in certain places. So instead, go with someone like Warden if you do want to get a premium one, but in this situation, to be honest, I would say the ones you get for free are better anyway. Rook is very strong, Doc is very strong, they're not going to cost you any money, and Warden just doesn't offer enough, unfortunately. In terms of Roamer, there's many you could choose from. I toyed with the idea of Vigil or Alibi, but in the end I've decided to settle on Mozzie, and the reason being, even though he's not 3-speed, which is ideally what your Roamer will be, he has a shotgun so he can make rotation holes for himself. He has the shotgun that can also open hatches, so two things the shotgun can do that will make traversing the map more easy for him. He has a nitro cell, that's another strong thing. He has a very high value gadget that's easy enough to understand. It takes control of enemy drones and turns them into your own cameras. If you can hide them in certain places, it's quite hard for the enemy team to necessarily understand if it's theirs or not, because it needs to be active for it to be emitting the blue light instead of the yellow light it would normally be emitting if it belonged to the attackers. These things are pretty major giveaways when they're turned on, but when they're turned off, it's a gamble for them, and most of the time they don't want to do that 50-50, and so you just have to leave a persistent source of intel behind them, essentially. Plus you can use it to drone out places that you want to roam. I wouldn't recommend this as much because it takes up a lot of time and it's quite noisy, but you can do it if you feel like it. So all these things add up to make him quite good, and it also means that if you keep a pest on you, someone drones you out, you can always just put that pest down and use it to protect yourself. So yeah, plenty of stuff to make Mozzie a very good roamer. He's definitely one of my favourite characters. Breach Denial, Kaid. Kaid's the only breach denial that's actually been added since the post-launch. And he's very good, he's very unique. He's been buffed recently so that he can now cover 3 walls at once with a single Electroclaw, which is something that he could not do at all before. He can do that now in certain situations, and yeah, he's just very good. He can electrify hatches and actually protect them, unlike Bandit, who puts the battery on top of the hatch, open to be destroyed immediately. And so it offers a completely different style of denial to Bandit. He can't quite trick the way that Bandit does, because the difference between deployment of Bandit's gadget and of the Kaid Electroclaw is the Electroclaw is thrown and then proceeds to activate itself after a certain amount of time, whereas the Bandit battery is put down, and as soon as the animation's finished, it's immediately activated. So it can't be destroyed whilst it's in the hands of the Bandit. It can only be destroyed once it is actually already dealing damage, whereas Kaids can be destroyed when it's not dealing damage. And that's where it's much easier to counter a Kaid trick than it is to counter a Bandit trick. But they're both difficult in their own special ways. And he does interesting things. As I say, he can do hatches, which is unique to him. In terms of intelligence, you've got to go with Valkyrie. She is the classic. She can put down her own camera feeds, and her cameras are more difficult to see than other people's. You can get creative. Her weapons aren't the best, but she's fun to use. She's just a very classic operator, and she's stuck around and been so valuable for so long because her gadget is just solid. Does exactly what it says in the tin. If you want a camera somewhere, just put it there, and that's you sorted. And then the plant denial, it's got to be the king. It's got to be Echo. Echo is unlike any other plant denial person in that he can literally cancel the plant. This is more strong than you will ever understand. It's until you get beaten by an Echo who has stopped your plant from going down, you won't understand just how soul-destroyingly powerful that particular feature is. It's a horrible feeling, but when you're the one who's dishing out that particular punishment, it's very, very good. So, do with that information what you will. And the final little tip I would give to you in terms of going into ranked and sort of being ready for it, just have a warm-up. Get into a Terrorist Hunt Classic, go in solo, pick the operators you want to go as on attack, and just get used to shooting. Go for the heads, play a couple of rounds, and once you get moving, get that muscle memory going, start to get the feel for the controller, get the feel for the mouse and the keyboard, you're going to be feeling a lot better. You're going to be hitting shots a lot more accurately, a lot more consistently, and you'll be having a much better time. So that is another one of my recommendations, probably my best recommendation if I don't say so myself. I definitely see a marked improvement in my own play when I have a warm-up in T-Hunt rather than not having a warm-up, or playing a casual for a warm-up even. It's not the same. When you're wanting to warm up, you just want to hit mindless targets who aren't going to kill you instantly. If you go into a casual game, the likelihood is you're not going to be able to have a firefight with all 5 enemy team members. Whereas if you're going into a terrorist hunt, it is a building full of people who you can shoot at, and that's what you need. You just need that aiming practice. So, all of these things should give you a better feel for going into ranked. It's not as scary as you think it is, and until you just get in and play, you're just going to be worried about a rank that doesn't exist. And don't worry about people complaining about KDs, slagging you off or whatever. Your KD doesn't matter at the end of the day. As long as you're enjoying the game, as long as you're getting out of it what you want to get out of it, and you're having fun, and you're with your friends, and that's the other thing, use an LFG and find some friends. All the people I play with on Siege just now, none of them I know in real life. I've all met them through the game, or I've met them all through the game. I'm sorry, it's late at night, I'm talking like an idiot. And they've all gone on to be quite good friends of mine as a result of this game. So by all means jump in. And if you do have any friends that play Siege, I obviously did for a long time, and then they stopped playing the game, unfortunately. Get them on, play with them, have a good time. But make sure you've got a mic, make sure you're having fun. And if you're not having fun, there's always Dead by Daylight for a little break. Thanks for listening, guys. If you've got any other questions about ranked, if you want me to address anything else in the future, by all means, give me a shout and I'll do my best to get a video out about it. But for this week, that's me, Purdy Blackwatch. Does Fidania, everybody. Bye bye.